Hi, so this particular series of videos in the playlist is going to be based on working with indices. Now this is a playlist which is specifically aimed towards a star grade. It does take a little bit of time to work through, so I'm going to break it down into maybe 4 or 5 videos on the playlist and then some practical examples towards the end. Okay, so just to get us started, I'm going to give you an example of one of the laws which does come up quite a bit, which is this one. And the way it's usually written is that a to the power of minus n is exactly the same as 1 over a to the power of n. Okay, alright, now this will come up from time to time, and it usually comes up in the format of something like this. So it'll say 5 to the power of minus 2. Well, 5 to the power of minus 2 is exactly the same as saying 1 over 5 squared. And 5 squared is the same as saying 5 times 5. So therefore, that's exactly the same as 1 over 25. So that's the first type of rule that you're going to come across. It might be that you get something like this. So 4 to the power of minus 3. Well, 4 to the power of minus 3 is exactly the same as 1 over 4 to the power of 3. Well, 4 to the power of 3 is the same as 4 times 4 times 4, so that's the same as 1 over 64. Now this particular type of rule in indices comes out quite a lot in most of the exam paper questions that you're going to be working through. So it's quite important. One that's not so popular is something like this, although it does happen from time to time, and you'll get it's written usually in this format a over b to the power of n. Well, a over b to the power of n is the same as saying a to the power of n over b to the power of n. Okay? So, in other words, you're multiplying a by n and you're multiplying b by n as well. So it's this. So a practical example of that would be something like, it'll say 3 over 10 all squared, which is the same as saying 3 squared divided by 10 squared, which is the same as saying 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9, and 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100. Okay, so this one not so popular, this one quite popular, this one probably not so much. Okay, don't really come across that one too often, or if we do, it's kind of couched in other sort of terms which we're going to be dealing with towards the end of this particular playlist. Okay, so one that you will come across also, which is quite popular, and you need to remember these two particularly, is something called fractional powers. Okay, where it'll say something like a to the power of a half. Okay, well, a to the power of a half is exactly the same as saying the square root of a. Now, normally we don't write that little 2 there, we just write it as the square root of a. So an example of that will be something like, let's say, 49 to the power of a half is the same as saying the square root of 49, which is 7. Okay, or actually it's plus or minus 7. So you will come across this one from time to time as well. Let me give you another example of that. So let's say we've got something like 27 to the power of 1/3. Well, 27 to the power of 1/3 is the same as saying the cube root of 27, and the cube root of 27 is 3. Note that it's not plus or minus 3, it's actually an odd number, so therefore the only root, so the only cube root of 27 is going to be 3 on its own, because 3 times 3 times 3 again is 27. Okay, so one final example, we've got 16 to the power of a quarter is the same as saying the 4th root of 16. Well, the 4th root of 16 is plus or minus 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is going to be 16. Okay, so in terms of the rules of indices, the two key ones from this particular video is going to be this one, which is a to the power of minus n is the same as saying 1, or the reciprocal as it's called. It's actually called negative powers or reciprocals, a to the power of n. Okay, so 5 to the power of minus 2 as an example is the same as saying 1 over 5 squared, which is the same as saying 1 over 25. Okay, so that's really important. This one is quite important as well, and it's well worthwhile remembering those. You will come across those two on a fairly frequent basis. This particular one, yes you will, it will happen, but it's perhaps not as often as it would be with the other ones. I hope that's been okay for you. Please do add a comment below if you're not sure about anything I've said, and I will respond to the comments, and also subscribe to the channel. If you want to look at the rest of the playlist, then there will be some more examples of how we use indices in most of the maths applications that you're going to get up to about high school level. I hope that's been useful. I'll look forward to seeing you inside the next video.